The North Dakota chill still seemed to cling to the work clothes I'd tossed in the back seat of my Ford F-150. 6 straight weeks. 6 weeks welding sections of pipeline in the biting cold, wind strong enough to knock you over. But now I was driving down E10 heading for Houston, and the familiar humid Texas heat was pouring in through the cracked window. Relief washed over me. I was almost home. Home. That word had meant everything to me for the past 3 years. Not just a place to sleep, but a goal, a dream built with sweat, long nights away, and countless hours of overtime. A house in Cypress, a quiet suburb northwest of Houston, where Brenda and I could finally build a real life. After all those years I spent drifting from one job site, one oil rig, to the next. My name's Jack Riley, 48 years old, professional pipeline welder, Texas born and raised. My line of work isn't for the faint of heart. It demands skill, absolute focus, and the ability to endure harsh conditions. In return, it pays damn well. And I'd poured every dollar I earned, every single cent, toward that one goal, the house. 3 years, 1,095 days, without a single real day off. Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, I spent them all out on some site, under harsh floodlights, a welding torch in my hand instead of a celebratory drink. Every spark that flew from my welding rod, I pictured sturdy brick walls, a green backyard, and Brenda smiling, welcoming me home. Finally, I turned onto the familiar street leading to our neighborhood. My heart beat a little faster. This 6-week stint had felt longer than usual. Brenda's calls had been fewer, the texts sparse. She'd said she was busy decorating, that the signal out where I was working was spotty. I was bone-tired from 12-hour shifts myself, so I just figured we were both busy. I pulled into the driveway, and that's when the first knot of unease tightened in my gut. A shiny, new-looking maroon Chevy Silverado was parked square in my usual spot. Not Brenda's car. She drove a small SUV. I frowned, cut the engine, and got out. Maybe friends visiting. But it was mid-afternoon on a Tuesday. Kind of strange. I walked around to the front door, fumbling for my keys in my pocket. The house looked the same. Dark brown shingles, cream-colored brick walls, neatly trimmed lawn. But when I put my key in the lock, it wouldn't turn. I tried again, carefully. Still nothing. Felt like something was blocking it from the inside. Weird. Maybe the lock was jammed. I rang the doorbell. No answer. I pressed it again, holding it a little longer. Still silence. Frustration started bubbling up, mixed with confusion. I knocked, first lightly, then harder. "Brenda, you home?" Silence. I banged on the door harder, almost pounding. "Brenda, open the door. I'm home." Finally, a click from inside. The lock turned. The door creaked open. But the person standing there wasn't Brenda. It was a guy I'd never seen before. Around my age, maybe a few years younger, tall build, short blonde hair, wearing a t-shirt and gym shorts, looking completely at home. He looked me up and down, a little annoyed. "What do you want?" His tone was slightly condescending. I was stunned for a second. I'm Jack Riley. This is my house." The guy smirked, a smug look spreading across his face. "You're mistaken, old-timer. This is my house. Pretty sure you got the wrong address." My blood started to boil. "Wrong address? I live here. Well, I own this house. Where's my wife? Where's Brenda?" "Ah, Brenda," the guy drawled, tilting his head back toward the inside of the house. "Honey, someone's here for you." And then Brenda appeared, half hiding behind the strange man. Her face was pale, her eyes avoiding mine, but her lips were pressed into a tight line, trying for calm, almost defiant. She was wearing a flimsy silk nightgown I'd never seen before. "Jack," her voice trembled slightly, but it was cold. "You're home early?" "Early?" I practically yelled. What the hell's going on here, Brenda? Who is this guy? Why's he in our house? Why didn't my key work? The other guy wrapped an arm around Brenda's waist, pulling her close. Let me clear this up for you, buddy, he said, his voice dripping with superiority. I'm Chad Nelson, and this is my house now. Brenda and I live here. He pulled a crumpled piece of paper from his shorts pocket. Looked like a utility bill or something. It showed his name, Chad Nelson, right at this address. No way, I stammered, feeling the ground shift beneath my feet. We bought this house 6 months ago, with my money. Money I busted my ass working for over the last 3 years. Brenda finally looked me in the eye, but her gaze was cold, distant. Jack, things have changed. The house. It's Chad's now. Chad's? My chest felt tight, like I couldn't breathe. What the hell are you talking about? How is that possible? Chad laughed out loud. Simple. Brenda signed the deed over to me, all legal and stuff. I just stood there, frozen. The North Dakota cold had nothing on the icy chill running down my spine right then. The dream house, the reward for all that sacrifice. Now some stranger was standing in it, holding my wife, telling me it belonged to him. 3 years of nonstop work, 3 years of being away, 3 years of trusting the woman I loved, all shattered in an instant. I felt like the world's biggest fool, completely and utterly betrayed. Get out of here, Chad said, his voice hardening, before I call the cops. Brenda said nothing, just looked away. I stumbled back a few steps, my legs shaking. My mind was blank. I looked at the house, at the stranger, at the woman who had been my wife. Then I turned and trudged back to my truck. My world had just imploded. I drove aimlessly for nearly an hour, my head spinning. The initial shock slowly gave way to a burning rage and gut-wrenching pain. How could this happen? Brenda? The woman I loved, trusted, the one I'd sacrificed everything for to give her a better life? I remembered the house buying process 6 months ago. The joy when we found the perfect place in Cyprus. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a backyard big enough for weekend BBQs, everything I'd dreamed of. The price tag was $400,000, a huge sum, but I was ready. I'd saved up $80,000 cash for the down payment, all from my welding wages and overtime. Every single dollar soaked in sweat, grease, and the burn marks on my hands. The problem was, I was always away on jobs. Weeks, sometimes months at a time. Handling the paperwork, the mortgage application, it was complicated. Brenda had offered to be the primary name on the documents. It'll be easier, honey, she'd said, her voice sweet as syrup. You just focus on working and earning the money. I'll handle the paperwork here. You're gone so much, it's a hassle for you to come back just to sign things. It wastes time. And like a damn fool, I agreed. I trusted her. Completely. I remember signing some initial papers at a title company office, but most of the later procedures, including whose name went on the final deed and the mortgage, were handled by Brenda. I just kept transferring money into our joint account for her to manage everything. The down payment, closing costs, and later, the monthly mortgage payments. I was too trusting, too exhausted from work, and too desperate for that house to notice any red flags. Looking back now, the signs were there, the calls dwindling, the short clip texts, Brenda's occasional irritability over the phone, which I chalked up to stress about the house, or maybe just missing me. Once, about 4 months ago, I got a few unexpected days off. When I came home unannounced, Brenda seemed startled, flustered. She mumbled something about cleaning the storage shed and being surprised. Back then, I just laughed it off, hugged her, and thought I was stupid for even having a flicker of doubt. And the spending on the joint account. I'd glance at the online statements sometimes, seeing large purchases for furniture, decorations. I just figured Brenda was nesting, fixing up our new home. I was actually happy she was putting effort into it. I had no idea she was spending my money to build a different life, with a different man. Anger surged through me like a flash flood. I had to do something. I couldn't just let them steal everything from me. I pulled over to the side of the road, forcing myself to take deep breaths. Stay calm. Think logically. Like handling a tricky weld under pressure, I needed a plan. The first person I thought of was Mike Donahue, an old welding buddy. Mike retired from the pipelines a few years back, runs a small machine shop east of Houston now. He's a straight shooter, solid guy. I dialed his number. "Jack?" "Hell, man, long time no hear," Mike answered, his voice booming as always. "Back in H-Town. Why you sound like death warmed over?" "Mike," I tried to keep my voice steady. "I'm in deep trouble. Real deep. You around? I need to talk." "What's wrong? Sounds serious." "Yeah, I'm at the shop. Come on by." I drove to Mike's shop. Seeing the concern on my old friend's face, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I spilled the whole story. Arriving home, the strange truck, the guy Chad, Brenda's words, the gut punch of being kicked out of the house I bought. Mike listened, his face growing darker. He slammed his hand on his workbench. "Son of a bitch! That damn woman, unbelievable! Jack, I know how much work you put into that house." "I know," I said, my voice hoarse. "What do I do now, Mike?" "First thing, you need a good lawyer. Right now," Mike said firmly. "I know a guy, David Garcia. Handles real estate and divorce. Tough as nails, sharp as a tack. Let me call him." Mike picked up the phone and got Garcia on the line. After a quick explanation, Mike handed the phone to me. Lawyer Garcia's voice was calm, professional. "Mr. Riley? Mike just gave me the rundown. I'm very sorry to hear what you're going through. It sounds like a potential case of fraud and a serious violation of marital property laws. What should I do now, counselor?" I asked, trying to absorb every word. "First, you need to gather every piece of paper you have related to this," Garcia instructed. "Purchase agreement, proof of down payment transfer, bank statements showing the source of funds for the purchase and mortgage payments, any mortgage documents, any emails or texts with Brenda about buying the house. Second, we need to go immediately to the Harris County Clerk's office to check the public property records. See exactly whose name is on the deed and if there have been any suspicious transfers." I let Brenda handle all the paperwork, I admitted, ashamed of my own stupidity. I only signed a few things at the beginning. "That's okay," Garcia reassured me. "Texas is a community property state. Even if only her name is on the deed, property acquired during the marriage with funds earned during the marriage is generally considered community property. She has no right to unilaterally transfer the entire asset to someone else, especially when you provided the primary funds. If she did that, it constitutes fraud. We'll fight this, Mr. Riley." Hearing that, a sliver of hope ignited within me. "I'll do whatever you say." "Good. Be at my office tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. sharp. We'll go to the county clerk's office together." I crashed at Mike's place that night. Sleep was impossible, my mind replaying the scene at the house, images of Brenda, Chad, the home I'd lost. The betrayal felt like a physical wound, but alongside the pain, a different fire started to burn. Determination. I wasn't going to let them take my life's work without a fight. The next morning, I was at David Garcia's office on time. Garcia, a Hispanic man in his 50s, looked sharp and decisive. After reviewing the few documents I had, mostly bank statements and pay stubs, we drove downtown to the Harris County Clerk's office. The atmosphere inside was formal, almost sterile. We requested the records for my home address. After a few tense minutes of waiting, the clerk placed a file on the counter. My heart hammered against my ribs. Garcia flipped through the pages. Then he stopped at one document. "Here it is," he said quietly, pointing to a paper titled Quitclaim Deed. It was a type of deed used for quick property transfers, often between related parties or in divorces. But here, it was an instrument of theft. The document clearly stated, Brenda Riley transfers all right, title, and interest in the property at my address to Chad Nelson. Date signed, about 3 months prior. Is your signature on this? Garcia asked. I looked closely. Only Brenda's signature. That meant she must have somehow gotten only her name on the final title deed when we bought the house, despite my signing some earlier documents. Or she forged something I didn't know about. No, just hers, I replied, my voice barely a whisper. Good, Garcia said, his expression hardening. This strengthens our case. She unilaterally transferred community property bought with your earnings. This is clear fraud. We requested copies of the quitclaim deed and other relevant documents. On the way back to his office, Garcia explained the next steps. We'll immediately file a civil lawsuit, he said, asking the court to void this quitclaim deed due to fraud. At the same time, we'll file a lis pendens. That's a public notice that the property is subject to litigation. It gets recorded in the property records, making it impossible for Chad Nelson to sell, transfer, or mortgage the house while the case is ongoing. Next, we'll initiate divorce proceedings, asking the court for a just and fair division of assets, which means demanding the house be awarded back to you. Is there a chance they could sell it before we do anything? I asked worriedly. That's why we move fast. Filing the lis pendens is the top priority. Back at the office, Garcia and his team worked quickly. Lawsuits were drafted. But while reviewing the more detailed bank statements I provided, one of Garcia's paralegals discovered something even worse. Mr. Riley, Mr. Garcia, the paralegal called us over to her computer screen. Look at this transaction. About a week before the quitclaim deed was signed, there was a large withdrawal, nearly $50,000, from your joint savings account, authorized by Mrs. Riley only. I felt the blood drain from my face. $50,000. That was money I'd set aside for landscaping the backyard and buying some larger furniture pieces. Brenda knew exactly what that money was for. She hadn't just stolen my house. She'd cleaned out our savings, too. The betrayal cut deeper and felt crueler than I could have imagined. That bitch! I gritted my teeth, shaking with rage. Garcia put a hand on my shoulder. Stay calm, Jack. This only strengthens our case further. It shows a calculated, systematic pattern of behavior. We will demand the court order her to repay every cent. This discovery added fuel to the fire. It burned away any lingering hesitation or sorrow. I wasn't just heartbroken anymore. I was furious and resolute. I would fight. I would get back every dime, every brick they stole from me. Garcia started digging into Chad Nelson's background. Turns out the guy had no steady job, a history of minor run-ins with the law over debts. He clearly couldn't afford a fraction of that house on his own. He was just an opportunist latching onto Brenda. Word was Brenda met him at some bar she frequented while I was away working. They thought I was just some dumb, easily pushed around welder, I told Garcia. They were wrong. They took my house, my money, but they can't take the grit of a Texas welder. Garcia nodded, his eyes determined. We'll show them, Mr. Riley. We'll show them. The legal battle commenced. As expected, soon after we filed the lawsuit and the lis pendens, Brenda and Chad were served with court papers. Their first move, through their own lawyer, was to deny everything. Brenda's lawyer argued the transfer was perfectly legal, claiming it was a gift from Brenda to Chad, and that the $50,000 was money Brenda was entitled to use from a joint account. It was laughable, but their brazenness only hardened my resolve. Garcia and his team worked tirelessly. We gathered depositions, meticulously organized financial records, and prepared solid legal arguments. Texas is a community property state, and we had undeniable proof that the funds for the house came almost entirely from my earnings during the marriage. Brenda secretly transferring the entire house and withdrawing a large sum just beforehand was a clear breach of the fiduciary duty owed between spouses and reeked of fraud. The litigation process dragged on for several stressful months. There were mandatory mediation sessions where I had to sit in the same room as Brenda and Chad, just feet away. Brenda tried to play the victim, sometimes crying, saying she was lonely because I was always gone, that Chad gave her comfort. Chad maintained his smug facade, but I could see the nervousness in his eyes as Garcia laid out the evidence of his poor financial standing. During one deposition, Garcia cornered Brenda. He grilled her on the source of the house funds, my job, why she transferred the house to Chad without telling me. Brenda's answers were evasive, contradictory. She kept saying, "I don't remember," or trying to shift blame onto me. When asked about the $50,000, she stammered it was money she needed for personal expenses. The lies were transparent. Chad didn't fare much better. When Garcia asked about his financial ability to own a $400,000 house, he floundered, calling it private and claiming he had inheritance. We knew it was bullshit. Finally, the trial date arrived. I wore my only decent suit, trying to project calm despite the storm inside me. Mike showed up for support. Garcia looked utterly confident. The trial took place at the Harris County Family Court. The judge was a middle-aged woman, stern but fair-looking. Garcia presented the case clearly and methodically. He laid out the irrefutable evidence. My income records for the past 3 years proving I was the sole financial source capable of buying the house. Bank statements detailing the flow of money from my payroll account to the joint account, then used for the down payment and closing costs. The quitclaim deed copy, bearing only Brenda's signature, signed just months after the purchase. Proof of Brenda withdrawing the $50,000 from joint savings right before the transfer. My testimony about the sacrifice, the goal of home ownership, and the trust that was shattered. Mike's testimony, corroborating my hard work and my long-stated goal of buying that house. Brenda's lawyer tried to counter, repeating the weak arguments about a gift and joint account rights. But the claims sounded flimsy and unconvincing against the mountain of hard evidence we presented. The defining moment came when the judge questioned Brenda directly. "Mrs. Riley, did you inform your husband, Mr. Riley, of your intention to transfer this house to Mr. Nelson?" Brenda hesitated, glanced at her lawyer, then looked down at the floor. "No, Your Honor." "Why not?" the judge pressed. Brenda couldn't offer a logical answer. She mumbled something about being scared and not knowing how to say it. The judge also turned to Chad. "Mr. Nelson, were you aware of the source of the funds used to purchase this home? Were you aware that Mr. Riley worked tirelessly to earn that money?" Chad looked flustered. I thought it was Brenda's money." "Did it ever occur to you to wonder how a woman with no significant income could afford a $400,000 house?" the judge inquired sharply. Chad had no answer. After hearing all arguments and reviewing the evidence, the judge called for a recess to deliberate. That wait felt like an eternity. I sat there, hands clenched, heart pounding. Mike patted my back. "It's going to be okay, Jack. Justice is on your side." Finally, the judge returned to the courtroom. She looked directly at Brenda and Chad, then read her ruling. 1. The court declares the quitclaim deed dated specific date between Brenda Riley and Chad Nelson null and void due to fraud and breach of fiduciary duty within the marriage. Legal title to the home is confirmed as community property, but given the source of funds being primarily Jack Riley's and the fraudulent conduct of Brenda Riley, the house will be awarded to Mr. Riley in the divorce decree's property division. 2. The court orders Brenda Riley to reimburse the $50,000 improperly withdrawn from the joint savings account to Mr. Riley's account within 30 days. 3. Regarding the divorce, the court grants the divorce petition. Due to Mrs. Riley's fault, infidelity, financial fraud, the division of property will disproportionately favor Mr. Riley. Specific details will be outlined in the final divorce decree, but essentially Mr. Riley will retain the house and the majority of assets generated from his income. Brenda Riley will receive minimal assets, if any. 4. Chad Nelson is ordered to vacate the premises within 48 hours of the ruling taking effect. I let out a huge sigh of relief, feeling an immense weight lift off my shoulders. Garcia smiled and shook my hand. "We did it, Mr. Riley." Brenda burst into tears. Chad's face was pale. He shot me a look of pure hatred, but was utterly powerless. They had lost, completely. 2 days later, accompanied by 2 county sheriff's deputies and Garcia, I returned to the house in Cypress. Chad had cleared out his stuff, leaving a mess behind. Brenda had apparently left earlier, leaving no note. I stepped inside the house. It felt strange. Same walls, same roof, but the air was different. It wasn't the cozy dream home anymore. It was the scene of a bitter betrayal. The faint scent of cheap cologne, likely Chad's, lingered. A few tacky decorations I definitely hadn't bought lay scattered on the floor. The first thing I did was call a locksmith to change every single lock. The click of the new tumblers falling into place sounded like an affirmation of ownership. This was my house, truly mine. Over the next few days, I spent time cleaning. I threw out anything that reminded me of Chad and anything Brenda had bought with my money during my absence. I repainted a few walls, rearranged the furniture my way. Slowly, the house started to feel like Jack Riley's place again. The final divorce decree came through, confirming my full ownership of the house and ordering Brenda to repay the $50,000. She walked away with next to nothing, a fitting price for her deceit and greed. I heard later that she and Chad split up, and Brenda was struggling financially. As for criminal charges, Garcia advised that we'd won the civil case and recovered the property, and pursuing a criminal case could be lengthy and costly. I decided to leave it at that. My main goal was achieved. My life slowly got back on track. I still worked as a pipeline welder, but I started thinking about finding projects closer to home, or at least striking a better balance between work and life. The scar from the betrayal was still there, but it didn't ache constantly anymore. It became an expensive lesson about trust, financial diligence, and most importantly, my own resilience. I lost a wife, lost the faith I had in a love I thought would last forever. But I got back my hard-earned savings, my dignity, and my home. I rose from the ashes of deceit, stronger and more clear-eyed. This afternoon, after a day helping Mike at his shop, picking up odd jobs while waiting for the next big project, I drove home. My home. I parked my F-150 right where it belonged in the driveway. I walked inside, grabbed a cold beer, and went out to sit on the back porch. The sun was slowly sinking below the Texas horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Sitting there alone, in the quiet twilight, I felt a strange sense of peace. A tired peace, earned through a long fight, but solid and self-reliant. Justice had been served. This house was mine, bought with my own sweat and blood, and nobody could take it away again. The future might not hold any rosy illusions, but it was mine to build, step by step, right here on Texas soil.